In this video, I'm going to show you how to level up so fast as a startup founder that investors cannot possibly ignore you, especially if you're raising an early stage round of funding. This is part of my CFXO Chief Funding Execution Officer series. If you check the description of this video and the comments, there's some special offers for you to join me and let me be your advisor to teach you how to be a CFXO. If you look at this tool right there on your screen, across the top, you will see 7 different fits. And this is the tool that I use to teach founders how to execute to raise funding and to eventually exit their startups. The faster you level up across each of these fits, the easier your startup will be to raise funding, even to the point where you may not even need funding, which is one of the great advantages of using this tool. Learn to become a chief funding execution officer, and everything else tends to take care of itself. And I've proven this over and over again, not just with my startups, but other startups as well. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. If we met before, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for popping by. Make sure you use the chapter markers to skip right ahead to the good parts of the video. If we haven't met, welcome to my channel. Nice to meet you. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits, and that's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit, because I use YouTube videos like this and my channel to try and help founders, especially early stage founders, avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I've raised over $100 million for my startups, other startups, as well as startup funds. Like I said, if you check the description of this video, you're going to see some offers to come and join me on a free trial to let me be your advisor, as well as download this tool completely for free. Make sure you take advantage of it. Level 1 is going to be FFF, which stands for Founder Funding Fit. And most founders don't even get out of this level. They get hard stuck right at level 1. Founder Funding Fit is making sure that you have the right funding for you and not just thinking that VC is the only way. Too many founders think VC, that's it. There are so many other forms of funding, from crowdfunding to seed strapping to raising money from your customers, as well as the good old-fashioned bootstrapping. You've got government grants, convertible notes, debt financing, loans. There are so many ways that you can fund your startup. The problem is that most founders get tunnel vision on VC, and they spend way too much of their time doing that. They waste a lot of that time as well as their resources, and eventually they don't get there, totally discouraged, and your startup never has a chance to get off the ground. You want to hack level 1 by simply doing this. Make investors plan B and bootstrap as long as possible. I always tell founders, and we say this at startups.com, investors should be plan B, because there are so many things out of your control and you can waste a whole bunch of time chasing after investors. But if you spend your time bootstrapping, and that's plan A versus plan B, the funny thing is plan B tends to show up and you have a lot of optionality. The longer you go, the more the other funding options open up to you. I'm going to challenge you right now. If you are a first-time founder, you're at an early stage, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't do anything until I get investor money, you're in for a very long road. But instead, if you think in your mind, investors want to see what I can do on my own, bootstrapping, you're going to be in a better position in the long term to grow really, really quickly. Trust me. I work with hundreds of founders every month, and so many of them are stuck at level 1 thinking they need to find an investor. And I'm here to spread the news, to give you the truth that if you can make funding option B, you are going to be so much better for it, and I'm here to help you out. Level 2 is FPF, which stands for Founder Problem Fit. That's when you as a founder, you fit the problem, or maybe you can say the problem fits you. Most founders get stuck at this step, failing to work on problems that fit them. Instead, they work on problems that they may be passionate about or really care about, but they're not a fit for. This falls into the category of domain expertise. For example, I know so many founders that care about the environment, or they have social sustainability, some type of vision in mind to make the world a better place. Maybe they've experienced the problem personally, but they don't have the expertise to actually go out and solve it. I'm not saying you can't go solve problems that you don't have a fit for. Eventually, you can get there. I'm just saying that to accelerate your funding milestones, to accelerate your success as a founder, you want to stay in your lane and stay within your domain expertise. And that's how you hack this level. Stay in your expertise and or solve the problem manually first. before you start building a startup, try and solve it manually, either being a consultant, maybe you become a thought leader, you write a book, a white paper, and you solve the problem. Then you're proving that you have the domain expertise. Because remember, investors invest in founders at that early stage. They don't invest in the startup. They expect the founder to have to pivot multiple times because our assumptions of founders in the early stages are typically wrong. Most of the time they're wrong, or they have to be iterated upon multiple times. And if you have that foundation of domain expertise, that you are a founder that fits that problem, investors will trust you with their money to say, I know that this particular solution may not work out, but because the founder has done this before or they're an expert, they'll continue to iterate, they'll adjust, and they'll pivot if they have to and take care of my money. That's why you see founders with tremendous domain expertise, accolades out in the market. Maybe they've won a Nobel Prize or they're recognized as a thought leader, as an authority. They tend to get that investment before they build anything because they know that they can solve the problem. They have faith in themselves, and that creates faith, confidence in the investor's mind in that founder as well. I know multiple founders that didn't have quite enough domain expertise, founder problem fit, so they went and worked in the industry. I know a founder who is building robotics to automate restaurants. He went and got a job in a restaurant as a server, and that qualified as that domain expertise, that experience that investors really appreciated that he was willing to do that, and so they began funding him, and now he's doing very well for himself. The third step is PSF, which stands for Problem Solution Fit. That is beyond you as the founder. Can you actually create a solution that solves the problem? Notice how it says problem solution fit. You start off with the problem, not the solution. And that's where founders get really stuck at this stage. Level 3, they start off with a solution and then they start looking for a problem, thinking that that's what investors want to hear. Too many founders fall in love with their own tech or their own solution just because they can build it. Sure, they may have a personal itch or personal connection. It's an itch that they want to scratch, so they start creating the solution, but it might be just for them and nobody else really needs it. And that's not going to grow in sales and profitability to provide a return on investment for that investor. I can usually see a mile away based on a pitch deck when a founder has a solution looking for a problem, because the problem doesn't really fit what solution it is, or they haven't really had enough experience, or they can't define, or they're not clear about the problem. They just kind of throw everything up against the wall and they expect investors to say, okay, this is going to solve a whole bunch of problems. When the true founder, the one who's successful, usually raises the capital, starts off with a problem, does idea validation, customer discovery, demand discovery, and says, okay, is this an underserved, underrepresented, underestimated problem? And can I solve it in a unique way? Start with the problem, then the solution, because they have that domain expertise. They've got founder problem fit all the way from get-go, and then they're able to create the solutions, and they're flexible. Founders aren't so attached to their solution that they get into sunk cost fallacy and they keep iterating on it only to have nobody care, and they waste all their time and they build something that nobody likes. Maybe the features start to creep out in scope. Everything gets bloated and then they lose their way, they lose their vision, they lose their focus, and investors can see that a mile away. So make sure that you start off with a problem and then create a solution and make sure that solution matches the problem. And that's how we hack to accelerate past this level. You focus on one feature until one user loves it and refers other people. You want to make sure it goes in those steps. You got one feature, one user, and they refer you to other people because they love it. In fact, they run to you and say, thank goodness for you. Bless your heart for solving this problem. You would rather have one person absolutely in love with your solution enough to refer somebody else because they're so happy, they're so in love with what you've built, rather than having 10, 20, 100 people that are just sort of meh and they're apathetic about it. They go, okay, I'll try it, but they're not loving it. If you can solve a customer's problem, they will love you. It's the number one rule in sales. This ensures you've got distribution no matter what you develop. If you have a real world problem and you've made sure that you've done the first step to solve that problem, so much so that they love you, you're shoo-in, investors are going to like you. Here's what investors are thinking. They know you don't have deep pockets. You don't have tens of millions of dollars like those other big companies. Instead, you're so focused of shoehorning your way into some type of gap. It's a land and expand model with your go-to-market strategy being the one feature that solves a problem in such an amazing way that customers will refer other people to you. Then investors go, there's a fire brewing here. There's a fire that's starting. All I have to do is take my money and pour gasoline on it, and the fire is going to continue to grow. And that's how you accelerate past this level. Level 3, problem solution fit. Level 4 is one so many founders ignore, and that is founder market fit. Founder market fit implies not only do you fit the problem and your solution actually solves the problem, but you know how to go out and get distribution, you know how to sell in the marketplace, and that includes understanding your competition. Founder market fit has become so much more important because distribution today is so fragmented. It is all over the place. Let me explain a little personal experience I had in China. In China, founder market fit isn't as important. Here's why. The network effects. You take an app and you put it on WeChat. This might have changed since I managed the fund in China, but back then there was such a density that if you dropped value, you actually solved a problem that a lot of people had, you kind of went viral pretty quickly, and I did so multiple times. Their distribution platforms were so centralized, WeChat, and there was no privacy, there was no regulation. Pretty much you had all the data, everybody used the same platform, so if you got out there, you stood out by solving a problem. But in North America, here in the West, things are different. Everything's so fragmented. And I have founders come to me all the time over here in the West saying, our customer acquisition costs are going through the roof. We don't know what distribution channels to focus on. There are so many out there, and we start to dilute ourselves. And that's what investors are afraid of, is that they're going to give you money to try and figure all these channels out, and you're going to get through none of them. But instead, if you have found a market fit, here's what you can do. You can immediately pick up the phone and call 10 potential customers. You can call 10 potential experts and 10 potential advisors that are willing to support you and endorse you. That's what founder market fit is all about. And that's sort of the test. If you have a solution and you're thinking to yourself, I have no context, I don't even know who to go talk to. Maybe it started at the idea validation stage where you're trying to talk to people and you're relegated to trying to reach out to strangers because no one will talk to you. Well, then that's a problem. You don't have founder market fit. I can't stress this enough. Development is getting easier than ever. You can go out and vibe code something to at least an MVP level. Might not be production ready, but you can get it out there. But actually putting in the hands of people with so many vibe coded MVPs going out there, so many little widgets and AI custom GPTs, it's very difficult to get distribution, and therefore founder market fit is important. That's why certain founders are converting from social media creators with millions of following, and investors are giving them money because they've got an absolute zero for customer acquisition costs. It's already built in. And that's what investors want to see. They don't want their money being burned 50 cents on every dollar going to paid ads and not knowing which 50 cents actually works, which half of the budget is actually scaling. They want you to be able to go out there and fit the marketplace, and that includes, as I said, understanding your competitors. You are absolutely aware of which competitors should keep you up at night, not just the ones doing the solution or being in your space, but the ones that potentially could, who've been eyeing it because you are such a fit for the market, you understand what's going on. If you want to hack level 4, all you got to do is master founder-led sales and build your network with value. Notice how I said build with value. It's not just enough to have a network. Your network has to see value in you, and you have to have the chops to go out and do founder-led sales because that puts you up close and personal with your market. To demonstrate to investors you have founder market fit, all you have to tell them are your sales stories and what language everybody uses. I was talking to a founder the other day, and he did sales, founder-led sales, one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat, and the customer said, very large customer, we have customers fall through the cracks. Therefore, your solution is going to help us. I told him to tell investors the exact same thing. Our customers say we're helping them prevent customers fall through the cracks. That's the language they use. That signals to investors you understand founder market fit. You should also be very thoughtful about your competitors. You can't say, I don't have competitors. We're just so unique. We're a baby unicorn in a rocket ship. We have no competition. Well, then you automatically sabotage yourself. The investor thinks you don't have founder market fit at all. But if you say to yourself, yeah, we really appreciate our competitors, we appreciate the big companies because we're learning a lot from them, and they've left a gap in the marketplace, and we know something that they don't know. Investors love hearing that because, once again, you've got limited resources. So you have to show the investor how exceptional you can be, and that's by starting off with strong founder market fit, and you help yourself every step of the way by learning founder-led sales. Don't be afraid. Pick up the phone or text people, direct message 200 people and talk to them. Tell them why you're contacting them. And the fact that you've got 200 people to even contact is a really good sign that investors want to see. Do not ignore founder-led sales ever. Always start there, no matter how eventually you're going to sell it or how many salespeople you're going to hire or how much you've engineered marketing into it. Learn founder-led sales. Level 5 is the almighty product market fit. You're probably going to hear this term all the time when it comes to raising capital. Investors say we want founders that understand product market fit. Unfortunately, most founders don't know what product market fit is, so let me define it for you. I see founders say in their pitch decks, we already have product market fit, or we understand product market fit. The thing is, if you have to describe it and you actually use the words product market fit, you probably don't have product market fit, because product market fit entails so many metrics that have come together in this perfect storm. Your distribution, your virality, your cost, your acquisition cost, everything that you have in terms of unit economics, the distribution channels have all come together, and you have this sort of hair on fire scenario where all you're talking about is how many demos you book, how many customers are coming through the door, and that you're on the verge of profitability. You don't necessarily have to be profitable just yet, but you can see a path because you're growing at an exponential rate, that hyper growth rate that investors want to see, like 10% week over week growth. You don't get to 10% week over week growth by paying for customers, because that's just a sinkhole and you're just accruing a lot of customer acquisition costs and that debt. But if you just happen to hit that magical spot and you're growing 10% week over week, and you can show investors that it's happening because your product fits the market on so many dimensions that you're thinking to yourself, man, we're going to go out of business. We can't hire engineers. We can't hire customer service staff fast enough. That's the type of venture that investors want to fund, and they will do it all day long, because that's where the FOMO and the greed start to sink in. They start to think, well, if you continue on this trajectory, you're not going to need my money, and I'm not going to make money with my money. I need you as the founder to take my money. And they will come approach you. They'll literally be begging, take my money. I say to founders, when you have product market fit, it's pretty much yours to lose. You are racing. You are on track to the golden promised land. Only you can get in your own way. And that's how we know investors really love to look at the founders this way. They like to see, does a founder understand product market fit? And this is the level 5. Let's talk about the hack. This may sound counterintuitive, but don't spend on customer acquisition until organic is exponential. I tend to catch a lot of flack from founders on this statement, especially for those who are familiar with marketing, because they don't have a problem spending. They know how to spend every dollar to go out and get a customer. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any problems with you spending money to learn how to go get customers. Maybe you're A/B testing some messaging, and the quickest way is to go out and put some Google ads out there, put some paid advertising, and A/B test and see which ones convert the most. The problem I have is that you can lean on that, and that's where so many founders get stuck at this level 5. They've been growing by acquisition, then they get to the point where they say, I need investors to come in and give me money so I can continue growing. But here's the trap. If you were really growing in a profitable manner, and every dollar that you put in, the return on ad spend was coming back, let's say $1.10, $1.50, you wouldn't need investors' money. So the investor immediately knows that you're in the hole, you're going in debt, and every single time you are not returning your ad spend, and investors think to themselves, well, when does this black hole end? And you may say, well, eventually when I hit a critical mass. How do you know that? You have no data to show the investor to get there. But instead, reverse it. Let's say you are growing organically because you figured out all these other steps, found a problem fit, problem solution fit, found a market fit, and you're growing, and you can show that data in there. The investor's going to say, pour that gasoline on that fire. Those metrics make sense. But too many founders go to investors with the opposite, and that's why investors are going to say no, because they're not interested in giving you money to go and figure it out. Once you hit that exponential curve, because everything's fallen in place, believe me, talking to investors is going to be so much simpler. You don't have to go through all the due diligence and tell them all the story. Just show them your growth graph and they'll get it, even if they don't fully understand, or maybe they're not a true believer in how your solution is really unique, but they can't ignore customers and that exponential growth, that product market fit that you figured out on your own without their money. What's not to love? They're going to say, take my money. Level 6 is business model fit. And I know so many founders, they start thinking about level 6 before they even pass level 2 or 3. The common signs of this is thinking, well, I have to scale. I have to make sure that everything is scalable, when Y Combinator themselves say, do things that don't scale in the beginning. What they're saying is get through all these other levels, and once you do, you can start to think about level 6 for business model fit. That's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time, because most of my channel here, all of you out there are usually before this step. But just in case you're here, here's how you want to think about business model fit. You want to hack it by learning systems and thinking to yourself, I'm going to scale slowly, preferably incrementally by 1% every system to grow really fast. There's this book out there that says it's easier to 10x rather than 2x. And I haven't read the book, but my understanding, the crux of it is redoing all your systems and doing something fresh so you can 10x your company instead of doing the same old thing and trying to eke out exponential growth by doing the same stuff, just going and getting inches, maybe increasing things by 10% when you should be focusing on a 10x return. But if you understand systems thinking, you know the way to get to the 10x is making sure that you incrementally improve every system. You've got multiple systems. Let's say you have 10 systems and you increase everything by 1% week over week. You are not just getting a 10% growth, 1% across 10 systems. Those systems contribute to each other, and that's where you get the 10x growth. That's where the exponential thinking starts to come into play. And the best founders that achieve business model fit understand systems thinking. Now, don't get too concerned with this phase, because if you have product market fit, you're probably scaling, you probably already raised a round, and then you can bring in experts who can help you with this. And I like to bring in people who are senior management people who've experienced at Fortune 500 companies, understand how to scale a department, continue to grow, because I'm not the best at maintaining on continual growth. I like going from 0 to 1, but from 1 to 10, you need to have business model fit. And these are skills that you can bring onto your team. So at this stage, you want to make sure that you recognize how to bring in people who are smarter than you, and that's what best founders do. This brings us to the final boss, the final stage, the final level, which is FIF. That stands for Founder Investor Fit. Most founders think I need to find the right investor that fits me right from step one. But level one, I told you, it's about founder funding fit. If you do all these other steps, you will find the right investor that fits you. I was talking to a startup founder coach just the other day, and we were talking about mental health. And she was saying a lot of times mental health actually improves because founders end up doing the things that they love by becoming entrepreneurs and having the freedom and the autonomy. And I told her, yes, I can see that, and I've experienced that myself. But there has never been a time where my mental health has increased when I brought on an investor. When you get an investor, you're bringing on your own boss. And so the minimum that I want is an investor that fits me when I still have all the pressures of having to make that investor money. I value my autonomy too much. That's why I bootstrap as much as possible. But I do have investors in my world that I'm willing to work with because I have such a good fit with them. But I only get there because I have optionality. If you are doing it right from the beginning and you need that investor's money, that's what exposes you to potential toxic relationships with investors or investors that are predatory. I've seen founders who are desperate for money come in and they say yes to the dumbest deals ever, or they spend so much time trying to negotiate with an investor that says, all right, I'm going to give you $20,000 for 51% of your company. I want full control. That's just a game. Real startup investors who understand what you need, and when you're in that spot where you already have product market fit, when you're already scaling and you don't need to raise the money, which is the best time to raise investment, that's when they will fit you. You have the options of bringing on those investors that are going to be on your team that sit on the same side of the table. At the end of the day, remember, investors are not your friends. They are your partners. They want to make money. This is not a family. This is not you saying, oh, let's be chummy and you can be my rich uncle. This is more like a team. This is a performance-driven team, and investors need you to 10x to 100x their money. So you have to be very sure that you've got all this in place, the rest of the 7 steps, so that you don't burn yourself out, or you're best equipped to handle the pressures that come on board. Because the more money you take in, the more those goalposts move far away, the higher that bar gets set, and the more pressure you're going to experience. So you want to make sure that you have the investor that fits you. Best way to get there is to get through all other 6 levels and have the optionality to pick and choose which investors that you're going to take money from. Let's conclude with my final hack. Live with JOMO and let investors come to you with FOMO. JOMO stands for joy of missing out. And not a day goes by where I don't experience the joy of not having investors on my cap tables. My joy is exponentially increased when investors come to me with FOMO. They come to me and they say, can I get on this cap table? What's going to take? And I say to them, not really open for investors right now. We're not in that situation. And that's okay. You might be thinking, what kind of founder are you then? I'm building not unicorns with a U, UNICORNS. I'm building YO unicorns. Unicorns based on me, based on my desires, my goals, my lifestyle. And that's what I want you to build, a unicorn based on your desires, not what an investor wants for you. And that would be my greatest wish that I would want to grant to you as a founder, that you experience JOMO, the joy of missing out, instead of the FOMO, seeing all these other startups get funded. And you're thinking to yourself, man, what's wrong with me? me and you're afraid that you're not going to fund it, and the investors then come to you with their own FOMO because they want to get on your cap table so badly. Next up, watch the full CFXO series that I'm going to put on the screen. You can learn how to use the canvas. Check the links in the description and the comments to download the tool, as well as get access to a free trial to allow me to be your investor. Let's spend some time together. Let's see if I can give you some value for the next 2 weeks, and we can work together and start to see if you can become a CFXO, or we can level you up as fast as possible to make you reach your funding goals.